Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's session, the much awaited session on medicine as a career pathways, pitfalls, and opportunities in India and abroad. My name is Varnika Agarwal, and I'm honored to be moderating today's discussion. As an expert career mentor and founder of My Big Leap, I'm based in Mumbai. I specialize in helping students and parents navigate the complex world of education and career choices, guiding them towards successful admissions at top universities worldwide. With a rich background across industries and a passion for mentoring, I'm very excited to be here today. And I'm delighted to have you all with us for what promises to be a fascinating and engaging session on a topic that has been one of the most highly anticipated discussions within the TOC community. And we already see a very high number of participation right at the beginning of the session. So before we dive into this conversation, let me first introduce TOC, the Outreach Collective. Now, for those of you who may be attending a TOC event for the very first time, let me take a moment to tell you what TOC is all about. Imagine a space where education enthusiasts, career pioneers, and passionate advocates don't compete but collaborate. At TOC, we foster a community that spans the entire spectrum of the education industry. We are a really buzzing community. Our mission is to create a platform where genuine, heartwarming dialogues happen and meaningful changes are made. What sets TOC apart is our focus on collaboration and not competition. The members of TOC are educators, counselors, innovators, and so many outreach professionals, both within India and abroad, who are dedicated to making a positive impact on the education landscape. We thrive on the diversity of our members, which brings together a wealth of perspectives, and we create a safe, inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and supported, and most importantly, heard. Today's theme reflects that very ethos. We are here to discuss medicine as a career, but more than that, we are here to listen to real life experiences and the wisdom that our distinguished speakers will be sharing. So, let me quickly introduce today's panel with you. We have with us an incredible lineup of experts who have walked the path of medicine while guiding numerous students over the years themselves, and they'll be shedding light on the challenges, opportunities, and decisions that shape this career. I'm sure their insights will be valuable not just for those interested in pursuing medicine, but for anyone in the audience curious about navigating career paths and thereby guiding their own students. First, we have Mr. Jitin Chawla, founder at Jitin Chawla Center for Career Development. He and his,
Hi.
he and his team have been guiding students towards successful careers for more than 2 decades. They have enabled schools establish career guidance centers, organized career counselor training programs, and have helped students reach the topmost universities in the world. Our second speaker today is Mr. Chirag Hutia, who is an independent
Hello.
career and college counselor who specializes guiding students who are planning for a career in medicine. He has a 15 plus years of experience in international medical education domain and has been part of developing an academic product to track medicine academic delivery as per CBME guidelines issued by National Medical Commission. Hence, Chirag will bring in a very unique perspective to this whole discussion. Our next speaker is Ms. Asma Ansari. She is the Dean of Cambridge Curriculum and Placements at the prestigious Daily College, Indore, and has an experience of 32 years in the educational field, both national and international curriculum. As a school counselor, she has extensive experience in guiding medical aspirants both in India and abroad. And finally, we have the very famous Punyavich, who's the founder, edu coach, and an expert in international medical admissions, who will be taking us through the global admission landscape for medicines. We are also recording this session, so for those who may want to revisit or share the session later, it will be available to you at a later stage. Now, before we jump right into this discussion, I'd like to remind everyone that TOC is a place where we encourage active participation and learning. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat and or you could even hold on to them for the question and answer session towards the end of this session. So without further ado, let's dive into today's topic, medicine as a career, pathways, pitfalls, and opportunities in India or abroad. I'd like to first invite Ms. Asma Ansari to share her wealth of experience on what to keep in mind while selecting school curriculums and subjects and their influence on medical entrance preparation for the students. Over to you, Ms. Asma.
Hello, everyone. So welcome to this session. Now, before I begin this, let me just talk about what professionals must uphold in the field of medicine. I just gathered this or took this out from the ancient Indian charak that India is very famous for, and India believes in that. So let me read that out to you. If you want success in your practices and fame and heaven after your death, you must pray every day on rising, and you must pray for the welfare of all beings. You must not betray your patients, even at the cost of your own life. You must be pleasant of speech and thoughtful, always striving to improve your knowledge. When you go to the home of a patient, you should direct your words, mind, and intellect and senses nowhere but to your patient and his treatment. So this is what professionals who are in the field of medicine must uphold. Now, to become a doctor, we tell the children, and we ask the children while counseling also, what all qualities are required if you are going into medicine. So first and foremost, academic excellence, yes. And after that, there has to be empathy, compassion, because without these qualities, without these skills, a child cannot become a doctor. Then the child should have leadership qualities, dedication, commitment, and yes, time management, and should be able to stand for long spells, long hours of work, as that profession requires power of concentration for long hours, good listening skills, capacity to deal with people, ability to take responsibility, strong communication, and yes, above all, there has to be teamwork that is required for a person who has to be into this profession. Now, in India, the students, like being a school counselor, I would certainly say that, yes, NEET has to be prepared by the child. A single comment, this has been replaced by the All India PMT, which was earlier. And like in my school, I have CBSE. So physics, chemistry, biology, English, and any other subject. 5 subjects required by CBSE and ICSE. But when it comes to Cambridge, even 4 subjects are sufficient, with just 3 physics, chemistry, and bio, and AS level, that is up to the class 11 AS level in English language. There is some criteria for entering into medicine, that is 17 years old when admitted to an MBS program, and his age cannot be more than 25. Yes, there are reservations, as we all know, when it comes to medicine. So the academic requirements are different, which I don't want to deal with now. I will come to the boards, the various boards later. But yes, the NTA, which conducts this exam. And why was this NTA set up? So that there could be efficient, transparent, and international standard tests. But this exam is not only for MBBS, it is also valid, equally valid for BDS, the dental, the homeopathy, the BAMS, and so on. And it is bringing about standardization from all education boards in India as well as abroad. The children have to keep in mind that, yes, it's a challenging, requiring dedication. And here, the children have to study for at least 5 to 5 and 1.5 years. After 1 year, there has to be an internship. A high level of technology is entering into the field, so there has to be continuous learning. What we guide our children, that if you are prepared to learn and you are prepared to relearn, learn, and unlearn, then most welcome. Since there is rapid technological advances, so one has to be updated, and always learning never ends when you are in this field. And they have to be constantly in interaction with the meetings, and you have to see when you're going to a university that it is approved by MCR. Now coming to the boards that we face. So CBSE board, they follows, I'll just compare the 3 boards that are very famous, the CBSE, the Cambridge that is there in my school, and a bit of IB. Now, the CBSE board, CBSE curriculum follows the NCERT syllabus. So physics, chemistry, bio, it closely aligns with the NEET requirements. Like it has the exam pattern of understanding, problem solving, The advantages are it's aligned with the NEET syllabus. People can get practice, but there is a challenge. There is limited emphasis on practical and international perspectives. Now, if I come to the IB board, it's not that the IB students cannot go in for NEET. They can, and they can get into medical. They have to take permission to appear for the 3 sciences, that is physics, chemistry, and biology. It has an emphasis on holistic learning, offers broad science education, but specifically the curriculum does not align with NEET preparation. But there is a lot of research, practicals, and independent learning. When it comes to Cambridge, A-levels, physics, chemistry, bio is recognized by the by NEET exam. And there is a broad syllabus coverage. There is in-depth subject knowledge. Though it is not directly aligned with the NEET syllabus, but here the preparation for NEET can happen. Like here, I can say some examples of my school. There are children with A-levels studying 3 A-levels and 1 AS English have qualified for NEET. I already have 1 doctor from the Cambridge curriculum. And this year, 2 girls have qualified and they are stepping into medical education with Cambridge curriculum. So it is, yes, a lot of preparation is required, but it is possible with Cambridge. Now, this I just had a comparison of all the boards. How can you have the NEET preparation across all the 3 boards? It is CBSE, IB, and Cambridge. And as I just said, that preparation means there are few in CBSE, NCERT books are there. In IB, limited NEET, but there are resources where the child can go in and prepare. And for Cambridge curriculum also, limited NEET, but resources are there and the child. But in Cambridge, the in-depth knowledge is very strong. So the child, what my student used to tell me that I am one up as far as my coaching is concerned because my basics in Cambridge curriculum of physics, chemistry, bio are very strong. So that is one advantage, though he has to prepare as per the NEET and the pattern. But regardless of any board, what is the ultimate goal? It is success in NEET. So what we do tell the children that you have to focus on the NCERT syllabus, but yes, keep practicing your skills, the MCQ skills. The IB and Cambridge students may need more coaching to bridge this gap. And with the right preparation, students from any board can excel in NEET. And I do have examples from my school. Yes, there are challenges in medical education. There's a lot of competition. There is a rural and urban divide. In our country, there is a lot of problem as far as infrastructure is concerned. And there are faculty shortages in our country. So what we tell the children as counselors, why only medicine? Why not some other alternative courses? Because we don't want that emotional and the psychological pressure on the child. So I do give advice that yes, why not go into the imaging technology? Why not go into becoming a nutritionist? Or why not into sports medicine? Like nowadays, there is this IPL and you can see there's so many people are involved there. So we have to guide the children and make them explore. And then it's their choice whether they want to, yes, go in for the medical NEET preparation or some alternative courses. There are many more. I have listed only few over here, which are nowadays very, very popular. So I hand over to Chirag now.
All right. Thank you very much. Alpha ma'am, I will quickly share my screen as well. Okay.
Just in the interest of time for everyone, we'll stick to 8 minutes max per speaker so that we have more time to take question and answers and the panel.
Anika, I will try because I have a lot of important content to kind of cover. So yeah, I will try. Sure. Because I have perspective of obviously students who get into med school, but also speaking to students who are already in med schools for their post graduation as well. So yes, the biggest change which is being introduced in the Indian medical education system is the introduction of the competency-based medical education. If you visit the NMC website, we will find the detailed curriculum and guidelines which they are working on a regular basis. But I very crisply summarized it. What they are trying to work on is the medical education, which is more UK based. They're moving to more US like. So in terms of curriculum, academic delivery, they have introduced something called as horizontal and vertical integrations. So here what happens is earlier, let's say an anat teacher walks in, the entire content was taught by anatomy faculty only. But now with the introduction of horizontal integration, let's say a faculty is talking about heart. A physiology faculty would walk in and also talk about the physiology of a heart. So what happens is the students get an all-round perspective. Let's say an anatomy faculty is talking about knee. So an orthopedic faculty can come from higher standards and also deliver the disease of the knee. A pathology faculty can walk in. So point is that the students get to know overall perspective because that's how they're going to face the patients. So not only the candidates, but also the teachers or the faculties have to change the way they are teaching, which is why this transition is kind of taking too long. Also, attendance has been mandated. All these medical colleges, not only for students but also for faculties, have a CCTV connected to the NMC. So they've been monitoring at a very minute level. Now, one very important thing we need to understand that in India, the entry to medicine is via three pathways. One obviously is merit, second is money, and third is the quota. So what NMC has realized over a period of time that students can walk in via various means, but over the period of time they are not able to clear the program, and at times they extend it for more than 10 years. Okay, so I know of a private medical college student. He runs his own bakery, and every year he comes and gives his final year examination. So this has been last 14 years now. So now the point is NMC has come up with a rule that within 10 years, when you join the med school, you have to complete the course, whether you are in India or abroad. Second, in the first year itself, there are only 4 attempts to the subject. You cannot carry forward your first year failure subjects to the next year. You cannot progress to second year until you clear that. And the effect was very much visible in Rajasthan last year. Almost about 32 students could not clear it, and they then appealed to the Supreme Court and stuff like that. So point is now they are very strict on these guidelines. And also the assessments happen regularly, not just end of term, semester or year. And the most important and awaited, thanks to elections, it got always postponed, but the recent guidelines talk about is an exit examination. So while there are, exit examinations already been introduced for, paramedical allied health programs, but for medicine this year, they've announced that moment the student complete the final year, there'll be a next one, MCQ-based exam. If they clear it, only then the internship triggers. So at the end of 4.5 years, you have your exit examination. Once you complete your internship, you appear the next two, which will be a practical exam, pass and a fail. So students can and will get admissions to the post-graduation based on the next one scoring. And the next two exam will ensure they get a license to practice in India. Earlier, it was guaranteed you pay X amount of money to a private med school, and as long as you pass all your years, you become a physician. But now you need to also clear the license examination. So this is the major or a bigger change that is coming right now in the medical education in Indian context. Now, if we talk about the competition, this is very important to understand the overall perspective and why we advise, because I meet students who want to join the med school or they're already in the med school. So here what happens is when the parents usually come, I say them to plan right up to post-graduation or super specialization, because your journey is not just MBBS. I mean, I will just give you an example. GTB Hospital last year came up with vacancy of 12 MBBS students. More than 500 candidates walked in, for that job of, a resident physician after MBBS. So MBBS, they are, expecting with the number of med schools increasing year on year, will become the next BTech. So it's important that people have their masters, either and later on, obviously, after doing MD medicine, let's say DM cardiology, or after MS surgery, do an MCH cardiothoracic surgery. So 24 lakh students write the NEET UG for about roughly 1 lakh 9,000 MBBS seats. 2.28 lakh students write the NEET PG for roughly about 49,790 MDMS seats. And 20,000 NEET super specialization candidates write the exam for about 5,500. So the funnel becomes taperer and taperer. It's like roughly 30 students writing a NEET UG to for about 10 getting into, and then one finally gets into a NEET SS. So the ratio is decreasing, and hence the competition. So now the important point usually comes is obviously 50% of MBBS seats are private med schools. So obviously I'll talk about the private med school criteria, but most important is the budgeting. So I always tell the parents, when you do the budgeting, it cannot just be about MBBS. MBBS is 75 to 1 CR. MDMS can reach from 1 to 7 CR. I mean, radiology last year, Ramaya was at least 7 CR. And then obviously the DMMC is about 25 to 50 lakhs. So 5.5 years of MBBS, 3 years of MDMS, and 3 years of DMMC. So it's a long career, so you need to plan accordingly. Now, the important data, obviously, this is not official, but this is based on the counseling which I do at a UG/PG level, that 75% of, these private MBBS students ultimately will have to join the postgraduate in private itself due to the lack of seats. And obviously, let's say when I do the sessions in the med school, I always tell the student, let's say 100 of you are currently learning one course called as MBBS, and let's say all 100 decide to do an MD medicine or an MS surgery, not possible. So students will have to taper down on the courses, and which is where this is very important for them to make sure that when the parents plan it, that actual budget, so that the money can be recovered, will be 3 to 4 crores if they decide to take the private med school pathway in India. MBBS plus MDMS. That should be your, readiness. As I said, just plain MBBS doesn't do the job. Now, 2021, the NMC came up with the guidelines for FMGL, one who wish to study MBBS abroad. What are the criteria? Now, this is very important because in medicine, it's a unique situation in India. Now, what happens is all other programs, usually students who have the money would go abroad, But in medicine, 80% of candidates go to a smaller countries where the budget is an issue. So if you have a budget of 20 lakhs to, let's say, 70 lakhs, that's when you decide to go abroad. That's the major chunk of students going abroad, So which is why, and many of these countries don't recognize or allow these doctors to practice in their own country. So ultimately, the government of India says that, if you don't allow them to work in your own country, which means they are not even eligible to work in our country. So which is why these conditions have been brought. So the course duration for any program should be minimum 54 months. Student must undergo minimum 12 months of internship within the same foreign medical entity. There are specific countries where medical colleges are just like any coaching centers. So there is no attached hospital, to the program. And that's a very important mandate, that if you are studying, and in India, it's a very important, normal norm that if there is a med school, there's a hospital attached to it. So this is what they want to do. They want to simulate the Indian curriculum or Indian delivery to any course the student studied abroad. The language of instruction should be in English. Majority of these, smaller countries, where people go, they have non-English programs. At least half of the years, especially the clinical years, basic medical science can be in English, but clinical onwards, it becomes in local languages. Also, once the students come back, FMG must write a next examination and complete a 1 year of internship. So what the exam which is there after the next, or the internship which is there after the next one, that still remains. This is an additional 12 months. So technically, one needs to also understand the 10-year criteria within which one has to become a doctor. So if they go for a 6-year program in Russia, they come back, they do that one internship, second internship, and if they do clear FMG exam in the first attempt, then within about 8 years, they're able to become an MBBS physician. So these are a few things one needs to consider in terms of the timelines as well. Now, I will quickly run on how to choose a medical college. Many of these, agents technically promote that, our college in XYZ country is a WHO approved. Now, WHO no longer plays any role. There's only one website called as a World Directory of Med School. They've consolidated entire database. Now, whether you want to study in India or abroad, now this perspective, what I say is because post 2014, lot of new med schools have started in India. And the Indian rule is that the NMC will recognize the med school only of the first batch passes. So if you join, let's say, a very recent college, it becomes a big challenge. So I will quickly show you, you need to go to the World Directory. This is the website, WDOMS. And whichever country you want to look for, let's say, if I just select, India, or maybe I'll just select Delhi, we can have the list of med schools which are there in Delhi and how long they've been established, So let's say we talk about AIMS Delhi. So it's a government institution, 1956, website in English. Now, this is very important for a lot of colleges in Russia, China, Ukraine, Georgia, all of these non-English speaking country. Majority of so-called Indian contractors have their own websites. They are not actual university websites. So you need to only refer to this link to actually log into the university website. Contact information, program details, whether it's a 5.5 years program or not. This is the genuine database. And sponsor note, this is the most important criteria. If one decides to write the USMLEs and do the post-graduation in America, or later on settle in any of the Commonwealth nations, if the college is not USMLE approved, I mean, one cannot write the USMLE exam until that happens. So this is important even for Indian government med schools, which have started off recent, or let's say private ones. If they do not get that approval, the students are not eligible. So these are few criteria one need to keep in mind. And I usually advise, if a college is at least 15 to 20-year old, we don't have issues of at least regulations where, midway the course has to be changed, or, NMC sends them notices and so on. Now, pathway to pursue PG in US, Canada, Caribbean. Now, the US system, quickly I'll talk about. So a NEET UG candidate who was to join about, these programs have to go through a BS program, which can be 2 to 4 years. And then they have an entrance exam, in case of US and Canada, MCAT, in case of Philippines, NMAT, and then you do an MD program. Now, as per the current NMC norms, those MD program, which is a 4-year program, is not recognized because it's less than 54 months. Plus, the one in the Caribbean model, students study part-time in, let's say, on the island, and then they do 2 years of clinical rotation in the United States. So again, the rotations are not happening in the same hospital attached to, which is why the students who opt for these countries usually have to look for a career outside India. They will, now NMC is becoming very strict. Come 26, 27, you will see these students will not be allowed. Most importantly, the Indian Embassy Philippines mentions it very clearly that every year, almost 60% of students cannot clear the NMAT exam. So they spend about 7 to 8 lakhs doing that BS program, which does not have much of a value back here in India. So you have to be very careful. This is not an integrated, many of the Caribbean program might have it, but otherwise BS and MD are a standalone program as per the National Medical Commission. They have a notification regarding the same. Regarding the Russia, Europe, Middle East, let's say Egypt and all, simple, you are a NEET UG candidate, you do an MD program, which is minimum 6 years, more than 54 months. If you join an NMC recognized program, you have to write your FMG next examination. If you clear that, you can practice in India. If you do not clear, you do not practice in India. If you clear that, you can practice after 1 year of intern. And if you join an NMC not recognized, let's say somebody suggested XYZ country, or a program, and later on NMC says you're not eligible, because one important thing is, if you go abroad, NMC has a real NEET UG qualified, and second, you need to take the eligibility letter before you can fly in. So last year, NMC released about 933 candidates who joined the program abroad but did not take that eligibility letter, stating that if you don't submit your credentials, you will not be allowed to write the exit exam and then come back to India. Which means then they have to settle in US, UK, Middle East, anywhere. Now, global license exam, quickly I will talk about. US has USMLE, UK has PLAB, India will now have a next exam, Canada has MECI, Australia has Australian Medical Council, New Zealand has New Zealand registration, Germany has Fastest-Prüfung and Kenntnisprüfung, 2 examinations, and Gulf countries, MOH, Dubai Health Authority of Abu Dhabi. So every country will have a license exam. Only thing is, there are some countries where you can practice, and there are some countries where you can do post-graduation. Now, US roughly has 39,000 PG seats, UK is about 12,000, India has 49,000 seats. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all were once upon a British colony. So what they taught us, quota system, that is true for these countries also. Hence, the number of seats are less. And in Europe or any Germany or any European country, the training language of instruction is in local language. So if you do a post-graduation from Germany, you can only practice in Germany, Austria, Switzerland. That degree is not recognized back here in India. So there are some countries, including Middle East, where if you have an Indian or a US, UK degree, you can practice there. Obviously, every system has their own challenges. US process is long, requires a lot of hard work. There are taxes and visa issues in from UK. So every country, I can separately talk much on detail on this, but broadly, the conclusion says that to do post graduation, US, UK, and India are seems to be a better option. After having a postgrad degree, appearing the MECI, AMC, you can get a specialist registration pathway. So my students are working in Canada, working in Australia, but having a postgrad from India, US, UK, and they have cleared their, these licenses. And even in Middle East, they are working very much, So why I'm talking about, because if you see the medical PG seats in every country, in India, roughly MD medicine 4,000 seats, Canada is 52, US is 9,000, UK 1670, MS 4,000. So while 1 lakh students are in MBBS and 2.5 lakh students write the NEET examination post graduation, the number of seats you can see, and Canada, UK, Australia, they all have a specific IMG quota. So these are the numbers of IMG quota in case of Canada. UK does not specify it in terms of numbers. It's a comparison ratio on the GMC website. But again, what you see in India, you need to divide by 3, merit, money, and quota. So actual number is 1/3 of the seats which you see. Hence the competition, and which is why I say always keep options open. Don't just rely on medical PG in India. You can always try United States as a backup, where the complete post-graduation is funded by the US government. Now, quickly, I'll run the Indian Embassy precautions and a few of the scams which students need to avoid. And so admission process in non-English speaking countries usually is ruled by contractors who have their sub-agents. And many in the case, the senior Indian students act as contractors and agents. So many of these med schools, 80% of students don't pass the FMG examination. So their next job opportunity or employment opportunity is to become an agent. First thing many of these med schools do is they actually send the students, ask them to create a YouTube channel so that they can recruit more students. That's the reality. Reliability of contractors as a source of information. These are actual Indian Embassy Russia, Indian Embassy Ukraine, Indian Embassy China. If you visit to Indian Embassy Philippines, their own wordings what I'm talking about. BS and MD are 2 different courses. NMC has clarified that BS and MD are 2 different courses and cannot be equated to MBBS degree course in India. Hostel facilities, many of them do not actually have. Georgia is very popular, but majority of colleges in Georgia do not have hostel, and hence the accommodation is so expensive that actual budget is equal to the tuition fee of the med school. Medium of instructions, it is mentioned very clearly. China has about list of 45 schools which offer in English, rest all offer in Chinese language. In case of Russia, majority of them have a dual mode, meaning basic medical science, first 3 years in English, and then it follows to Russian language. So it is real cases where, the agents have informed them that, okay, the teaching is happening in, English, and when they reach to the campus, the training is in Russian language. So you have to be very careful regarding the same. And the best source to find all of this is to go to the World Directory of Med School and go to the actual website of student and not the agent's website. And the last is the financial thing. In India, it is obvious that we pay the fees directly to the university and we pay it semester wise. But a lot of these universities in smaller countries where the agent says if you pay in full amount, we will give you discount, or probably, we will make it easy for you. So now what happens is there are numerous complaints with the embassy where they only deposit the first year fee and then there is no information about the rest of the fee. And that led to termination of enrollments of actual students. So these are few things one needs to be very careful as per the Indian embassy. Quickly, a few media reports of what's happening very recently.
We have last 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, I'm done. This is done. So I'm done. So clarification from Chet. But there's one Philippines med school very popular where you do like a 1 year in India. So Philippines Embassy of India does not recognize that course. But still, we've been recommending that course. So we have to be very, very careful. There are very less patients in that country. Russia issue with regards to language. Medical PG in Spain suddenly became very popular on Instagram, and a lot of people have been cheated because students are being sent for language courses and not medicine program. Similarly, fees issues, or so these are few things. You have to Caribbean, lot of med schools. It's like they start like mom and pop shop every routinely, and then suddenly they shut down. So these are regular issues. Kyrgyzstan, fake recognition letter. So these are few things which one needs to be very, very careful. I can definitely share all the links of these things for your information. So that in a brief, I could cover my journey for last 15 years. So Thank you very much, and over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chirag. I think this session is going amazingly great.
Yeah, yeah.
The whole audience is super excited with the kind of gems we are getting. Next, we have Mr. Jitin. He's going to
Hi.
talk about how NEET ranks influence admissions and more other important stuff. Over to you, Jitin.
Thanks, Vanika. Hi, everyone. So great speaking to all of you. So I remember long time back, I was also a person who, at that time, it was not NEET. There used to be different exams. In UP, there used to be CPMT. Each state used to have its own exam. And if I remember, like in 10th, I was an average student, and 11th, why did I even think of medical? Initially, I was not knowing. Took PCMB, but my mom wanted me to be a doctor. So being a doctor is a lot of times it's a parental obsession in India. If I look at a lot of people, having spoken to thousands of students, lakhs of students, I would say it is a parental obsession, and you'll be surprised. There's a gender distinct to it also. So if you go to a smaller city, you'll always find there's a clear distinction. Like, okay, PCM, PCB, and more girls veering towards PCB. So my first thing I do is to really get into details of, are you really into it? Would you like to look at things differently? Uh, Experiences like these happened. A principal's daughter in Ahmedabad, a very prominent school, they had a tie up with the hospital. The children were sent for 6 days to a hospital nearby. On the fourth day, this girl comes back and who is to verbalize that I really want to be a doctor. She comes back and says, I don't want to look at MBBS. I'm just signing out of it. It is not my cup of tea. Again, I have parents who are resourceful who take their children to various places, hospitals, nursing homes, and their friend circle of doctors, with half the people rooting for it and maybe more than half telling that, hey, look at some other alternatives. Also, we strongly feel that a lot of youngsters and even education fraternity, they need to understand that a lot of changes have happened. Today, there is a huge number of medical startups in India. If you do a normal Google search, you'll find more than 300 medical startups in the last 3 4 years, with some organization like Beat O, which uses mobile technologies to to help people with diabetes. So they secured a funding of 400 CR. So today there are so many medical startups, especially after Corona. The funding for bio entrepreneurs has increased, and next 10 years is the when I speak to VCs or private equity players, they talk about bio entrepreneurship being very much on the rise, which somehow is not being cultivated even at a lot of topmost schools also. In India, the programs are not as many, but outside, for the last 4 years, we have been sending students to UCL for a program called BSc Medical and Innovation. Of course, US, where you can combine business and bio. Uh, there's a program in University of Waterloo which is like accountancy and bio. Can you imagine that? So and so on and so forth. So I think this aspect is missed, and similarly for bio and analytics. So computational biology, or in India called as bioinformatics. So that's also a field which has been increasing, and a lot of big companies have deployed workforces which are working on it. I met somebody from Optum Healthcare, which is a part of United Healthcare, and they again they have such people, Infosys, TCS, and so on. So in terms of careers, I think more mind opening needed for people who love bio. Second aspect, which I found to be really useful with school children, is ninth and 10th. If somebody is really keen and they're like, hey, I'm a diehard MBBS, I really want to get into, I want to get into MBBS and be a doctor. I would tell them, start building upon your mathematics, not the reverse way, that run away from mathematics. Why? Because the moment physics hit you, if you speak to any bio person in 12th grade, there'll be a lot of them will be struggling with physics. Yeah. So if you build up mathematics in ninth and 10th, and maybe on the side, even if you have not taken maths as a full-time area, if you have built up mathematics in 9th, 10th, and even 11th, even without taking this as a full subject, still you can compete. So as the people have illustrated, it is very, very competitive. So I need to compete. What are some good resources which you can use to compete? So NEET Prep is good. So I have been in touch with the founders of NEET Prep. Amazing, amazing initiative. And you can take it in parts also. It's not that you have to subscribe to the complete thing. So you can choose certain parts to do. maybe you already have taken coaching, maybe you're not taking coaching. Like when I say coaching, I mean physical coaching. You can still go for NEET prep and you can build up. Of course, there are people like Physics Wala who have put up a lot of YouTube videos, and there are other content creators also. But NEET prep is something which I vouch for, and I've seen a lot of students using it and being really successful. Uh, I'll now come to the NEET ranks. Uh, if you can kindly next, yeah. Oh, okay. Top 10 MBBS institutes in India: AIMS Delhi, Jipmer Pondicherry, State Medical College in Mumbai, Bardhaman Medical College, which was earlier Safdarjung. So in Delhi, AIMS Jodhpur. So there are a lot of AIMS today. I don't know, but can anyone tell me where is the closest AIMS from Delhi? Like which one is? In fact, it is under AIMS Delhi only. Anyone? You can just put it in the chat. Closest AIM. Any idea? Closest AIMS from Delhi. Gorakhpur, somebody says. You'll be surprised if I tell you it's at a place called Jhajjar. And Jhajjar is again, Jhajjar was a sleeping town. So Jhajjar is even closer. So from Gurgaon, it took me almost, I think, 25 minutes to reach there. So Jhajjar has been seeing a lot of activities. Reliance MedCity is coming up on 8,000 acres of land, and AIMS has been there for quite some time. So a lot of super specialty courses they're doing. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying immediately after 12th you'll join in there, but 25 AIMS have been sanctioned all over India, 26 by the latest, and 20 are operational. Of course, not everyone takes in people after 12th, but just sharing. Then, of course, Maulana Azad Medical College, MAMC, and so on. Next, please. So you can see this kind of matrix. Now the entire document is loaded. So a lot of counselors ask that, hey, how do I guide students? So a good reference point is what has happened last year. So last year you can see the ranks. It will be by the ranks. So depending on, like, if I get 581 marks, maybe I'll get a rank of 3,500. Like I'm generally sharing for this year. So I will look at the rank and then check accordingly. Next, please. So how, like, who gets the top? So all these metrics, all these ranks you can see on the website, on the NTS website. Everything. It's a huge file which you can download and actually use it. Also, Careers 360 has done an amazing job. So you can also use their, I would say, online calculators to understand where, in which state one can get the seats. Next, please. So top 100 rankers. Next. So AIMS Delhi would be like 53. Next. I'll share this presentation. Maybe we can share it in the group, guys. So it might not be visible to everyone. So I'll be happy to share it. So top 53 people would like this time they got into AIMS Delhi, and then of course subsequent Jipmer Pondicherry, and people might have their own regional preferences also. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for making this much more. So if I'm a person growing up in UP, I have a domicile of UP. So domicile, it depends on what each state puts it. So in UP, I have a house and I'm doing and I've got my Aadhaar card from UP. So I'm domiciled in UP. Then 85% of the seats are reserved for me, and 15% are from all India quota. Yeah. Whereas Delhi, if I want to get into Maulanas and others, so I need 11th and 12th from Delhi. Yeah. I hope I'm able to make that distinction. So, so state government colleges also are considered to be pretty good. Like if you look at KGMC Lucknow, it's a very reputed college, and across you can see on the screen various colleges across Chennai, Ahmedabad, Surat, and so on. These are government colleges. Government colleges, the fees might range from, it depends, a lakh of rupees, 1.5 lakh, 2.5 lakh, depending on which, where, how. Also, when they were established, because the colleges which came later on, the charges might be significantly higher. Next. Private colleges like Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, CMC is very reputed. Amrita College, Amrita has just opened up another one at Faridabad. It's actually at Greater Faridabad. So Ramachandra Medical College, JSS again has a very good name in Mysore, Kalinga, Chettinad, SRM again has a very good name, and so on, and Bharatiya Vidyapeeth. So these are like top medical colleges. So a lot of children, like if I get a rank of 1000 to 5000, general category, I'm speaking largely of general category. If it is SC, ST, OBC, the entire equation changes. So AIMS Bhopal, AIMS Jodhpur, CGS Medical College, University College of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. This is what one can get. Next. Similarly, if I go for the next 10,000 to 20,000, then I'll get AIMS Raipur, AIMS Nagpur, BJ Medical College Ahmedabad, Government Medical College Surat. So still I'll get good medical colleges. Next. 50,000 to 1 lakh. So again, I can get medical colleges, though at diverse places. Like Institute of Medical Sciences, BHU is a reputed college. Government Medical College Chandigarh again, KGMC Lucknow. Yeah. So till about a 1 lakh rank, I'm getting top of the line colleges, and then I would come more to private colleges. Yeah. When I'm saying getting in, so these are colleges I'll get in without donation directly. But yes, somehow there are people who have cracked the code. So the government keeps on building up systems so the donations go down, but still there are ways in which people would pitch and offer you combinations so that you can get some government medical college, but again at a certain amount of rank. And this year it became very, very competitive. I'm sure all of you saw the NEET saga, how it unfolded, and cases of cheating and so on and so forth. I'm not delving into that right now. Next. Oh yeah. So I think Germany, we have been helping students with Germany and Prague. I think towards the end, I'll come and speak about this. Initially, my KRA was to look at how do you look at ranks and how do you crack medical colleges entry in Delhi. You'll be surprised, but one of my most successful counseling cases is a doctor whom I influenced and helped him choose entrepreneurship after his MBBS. His name is Dr. Ritesh Malik, founder of Innovate and a very successful entrepreneur. So people, I leave this thought with you that it's not only about being a doctor, but finding out which areas. But I strongly feel that entrepreneurship combined with bio is something which a lot of people will be pining for in the next 5 to 7 years. All the best.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jitin. I think our session is going really, really exciting. And while we are almost close to the end time, that was. But I think on popular demand, I hope everybody is okay if we extend the session by 20 more minutes possibly, because we still have Mr. Punya Vich to cover the international medical education and admission scene, which I think is also something very importantly we all are waiting to hear. So over to you, Punya.
Thank you, Varnika. I know we are overshooting time, but I'm going to try and do my best to keep it as concise as possible so that we can give a golden opportunity to all the members to present their questions forth to all the speakers here and get clarity on whatever is ambiguous towards the end of the meeting. Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to be covering international medical education options for Indian students. Just give me a moment. Screen check. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay, so I've divided the overseas domain across two geographies. The mainstream countries, the countries which have been popular for many, many years, where Indian students have been going to study medicine. I'm talking about the undergrad medicine program, not pre-medicine, which is why you don't see US on the list of mainstream countries, because I want to focus on where school students would like to apply to immediately for a medicine program. So we have UK, Ireland, and Australia as the mainstream countries, which currently have been popular for years. And then we have Europe, Malaysia, CIS countries, West Indies / Caribbean, and the UAE, which are more upcoming, and students are gradually applying to these countries. going to start off with the UK, which is the most popular. The Indian education system also comes from the UK. It has been adapted from the UK system, and hence UK by default, especially for most professional programs, whether you look at law, whether you look at medicine, there is a lot of compatibility between the way the course is taught in the UK and India, which is why UK is the most popular. So what are the entrance exams required? We need the UCAT and BMT. UCAT is more popular. The duration for most medicine programs is 5 years. Subjects required: chemistry, biology, and the third is math or physics preferred. So let me just pause a little bit here and tell you a little bit about the subjects. So in India, we need chemistry, biology, and physics. These are the 3 subjects that are required to crack the NEET. But in the UK, chemistry and biology are the 2 mandatory subjects. Physics is not mandatory. There's a choice between physics and math. And some colleges, even psychology works as the 3rd subject, because the guidelines of the UK medicine schools is chemistry, biology, and a 3rd science. So in the 3rd science, while math and physics are 2 sciences that are most preferred, some colleges even accept psychology as a science. The grades required, we need anywhere between AAA as a guideline that I have put, which is equivalent to A star. AA is actually equivalent to a 95%, which comes to approximately an IB score of 41 to 42. And it can go as low as BBB or 80% or IB 34. Anything lower than a BBB will not even get students into a tier 3 medicine program. So as counselors, we need to be sure that if a student is getting lower than this, then we need to evaluate whether medicine is even the right career path for them or not. If the grades have fallen due to an extenuating circumstance, the student is going through some mental health issues, or they've had some incident at home, that is understandable. In that case, the student can either retake their exams and show that they have the mettle to make it big in the space of medicine, or they can start off on a foundation program and gradually progress onto a medicine program. But if the scores have been perpetually low and they still feel that they can get to a great medicine school, they need to be given a reality check. And that's what our responsibility as counselors is. Going back to the conversation that Ms. Asma started the session with today, that there are a lot of life skills that we need as a student of medicine. It's not just grade, and grades are important because the grades also show the student's ability to be able to handle rigor. It's a very, very cutthroat, rigorous stint that the student has to go through when studying medicine. And if you are not able to get the grades, then you need to rethink. Mentioned some colleges under the category of dream, ambitious / target, and safety. Under the dream bracket, I've put Imperial College London, UCL King's. They would technically require somewhere around A star, AA, or even sometimes higher, which is A star, A star, A. Which is equivalent to at least a 95% in CBSE IB scores, going up to 41 or 42. Ambitious target would be somewhere around 38 to 39 IB points, or AA or A star AA, not double A star A, but a single A star AA or 3 A's, but not a single B, which means you can't go down more than a 90 or an 88%. So Newcastle, Exeter, Nottingham. And safety colleges would be colleges like Brunel, University of Buckingham, and UCLan. Now, even these safety colleges would need you to have at least an 80%. And this is what I want everybody here in the audience to take cognizance of, that unlike a business program or a liberal arts program where safety would mean getting a 70% and in some cases even a 60%, and you getting into those safety colleges, it's not true for medicine. For medicine, even an 80% is safety, which could be an ambitious target for other programs at different universities. So this is how the system in the UK functions. I'm going to take you now through the next popular country, which is Ireland. Ireland also, most universities offer a 5-year direct entry medicine program. The entrance exam is, I've written here UCAT on the slide because some of the Irish universities are contemplating, they've come up with a guideline that they may start off accepting UCAT from next year or next to next year. It has not been frozen yet. If it does not get accepted, then each university has their own entrance exam that they are taking. So like a Trinity College Dublin will have its own entrance exam. UCC, which is University College Cork, will have its own entrance exam, and so on and so forth. The grades, again, A star, AA, similar to what the dream colleges of the UK need. Going down to an AAB. Now, very few Irish universities will accept you at a BBB, which I had mentioned as the safety for the UK schools, because Ireland also has fewer medicine schools as compared to the UK, which has many, many more universities at the students' disposal to choose from. So hence the grades required, the lower spectrum of the grades required is higher than what the lower spectrum of the grades required for the UK's. I've mentioned the universities. There is no safety category in Ireland because there is no university that will accept you at even 80%. So if you are looking at Ireland, you need to look at a minimum of 85%, ideally a 90. Trinity College Dublin will accept you at a 95%. Another point to note for Irish medicine entry programs is that there are a few agent aggregators that exist for Irish medical education. And even if a student is applying something similar to what largely how Australian universities work, that even if you want to apply directly, you will be by default directed to an agent for any program when you want to apply to Australia. That's how generally generally medical applications work for Ireland. Even if a student were to apply directly, there's a possibility that their application gets routed to one of the large aggregators. There are a few aggregators for Irish medical universities mentioned currently on my slide, which are based out of Malaysia. So it's likely that your application will get directed there. And they also have quotas for every country, for every nationality. Like Trinity College Dublin last year said that they had only one seat for India for medicine. It changes year on year. So one also needs to check that with the university. UCC and NUI both have had a fair number of seats allocated. I've had students year on year go to both these institutions. I recently have a student from Colombo who's joined University College Cork this year, and she was admitted with 3 A's, which is equivalent to like a 90% in CBSE, right? Moving to my next slide, which is Australia. Australia has a direct route as well as an indirect route. Direct route is 5 years and in some cases 6 years. Most of the direct medicine programs in Australia are reserved for citizens of Australia and not for international students. There are the large group of 8 universities. When I talk about University of Sydney, Monash, UNSW, Melbourne, these top 4 Australian universities have direct medicine entry programs even for international students, including Indians. But as I keep going down the rankings, a lot of them are only for Australian citizens and not for international students. So one needs to look into that. However, the indirect route is fairly popular, and it can also cater to students who have lower grades, even lower than BBB. So in my first slide, I mentioned that UK can accept up to BBB. Otherwise, the student has to join the foundation program. If a student has, like we are currently working on a medicine application for a student who's based again out of Colombo. The student took the AS exams and got DDE in the AS level exams, and we are getting the student to repeat. So we've done all the bhashan and gyan we've given to the family that we don't think medicine is cut out for the child, but because the family owns hospitals, they're very clear that they want to give their last shot. Otherwise, they can always apply in the UK under clearing for a business program if medicine doesn't work out eventually. But they want to give the best, fairest try and want to surpass or bypass rather my guidance that whether medicine is really suitable or not, because there's only so much that one can say, and after that it's the discretion of the family to take what they want to. So I'm getting the student to do the AS level exams again in the October-November series this year. The student is confident that they should be able to get the grades up to about at least a BBC. And again, the UK may not work out because the A-level grades eventually will also be somewhere close to BBC. And now we are exploring Australia also. Luckily, and this I want to share with all of you, the National Medical Council, NMC, has very strict guidelines here for India, but the similar guidelines do not apply to the medical councils of other countries. So the medical council in Sri Lanka is fairly relaxed compared to what the medical council in India is. And hence we have chosen Australia, because as Chirag mentioned very rightly, that if a student is applying from India, we also have to look at a lot more other things. If the student has to progress from a bachelor's in medical sciences, which is a non-medicine program, to a medicine program later on, to get the doctorate, to get the Doctor of Medicine title, what are the exams one needs to take, at what level the equivalency with NMC needs to be looked into. But luckily for the student, we've checked with the medical council in Colombo, and the rules are fairly relaxed, which is why we went ahead and applied. So we can even look at the indirect route, where we have the 2+3 route or the 3+3 route. So where the student can do a 2 years condensed bachelor's in medical science, or a 3-year pre-med sort of a degree, and then do a 3 years Doctor of Medicine degree. The exams that are required, the popular exams are the same UCAT, which is accepted in Australia, in the UK, as well as the ISAT. These are the two main popular exams, but some colleges again will accept the BMT, which is accepted in the UK. And there are few more exams which are very, very specific to Australia. Chemistry, biology, the two main subjects, sciences are preferred. Again, third science needs to be math and physics. And here again, I would like to request all counselors to check specifically with each college once the college list is prepared, or if the student wants to select the subjects earlier in line with what the colleges would require, to check a few colleges and their requirements, because some colleges say that math would be preferred to physics, and some colleges say that physics would be preferred to math. So when students are doing the Cambridge curriculum in Australia and are applying to Australian medicine programs, sometimes they'll end up doing 4 A levels, and they pick up chemistry, biology, math, and physics, all 4, when they want to keep a very wide array of options. But not a lot of A level schools in India allow you to do 4 heavy subjects at A levels, which is why you will have to look into first what kind of colleges you want to look at, and then accordingly decide what your third science should be. It's a lot simpler if you're doing, the CBSE or the national curriculum. And if you're doing the IB, you can do the irregular diploma and sort all of this out, right? I've mentioned some dream universities: Monash, UNSW, University of Sydney. When I say dream, again, I'm talking about A star AA or A star A, or AAAA if you're doing 4 A level subjects. In Australia, under the Cambridge curriculum, they don't write A star AA, they write tariff points. And they have their own way of calculating. A star is equal to 6 points, A is equal to 5 points, B is equal to 4 points, and so on. And all colleges will say that we need a composite of a minimum of 20 points or 19 points or 18 points. And hence in Australia, students also, a lot of students do 4 A levels when they're doing the Cambridge curriculum. But when you're doing CBSE or the IB, you have the exact score written against every college and program that you require. There's no point system as such. Ambitious or target is, say, University of Griffith, which would be approximately 85% to 90%. And then we have safety, which is University of Tasmania and Bond, which would require somewhere around even 75 to 80% would work. Okay, Europe. So Europe, again, we have direct and indirect programs. The subjects are chemistry, biology, again, math or physics. Choice varies by university. Each university can have a different entrance exam. Some universities can go down to even a CCD in Europe, but then those have their own nationality caps. So don't get caught up, don't fall into that trap saying that this college will accept me just because I have a CCC. In most cases, those seats would be reserved for students who have a Schengen domicile. So you have to be careful of that particular fact. So for all practical purposes, the requirements are similar to what they would be at most other geographies. Malaysia, somebody had mentioned on the chat, what about Malaysia is a good upcoming geography. Again, for the student that I mentioned in Colombo that we are working with this year, we've added Malaysia. Malaysia is very popular amongst Sri Lankan students anyways across courses. But for Indian students and Indian counselors, we need to be careful of the equivalency with the National Medical Council, because a lot of programs are very new and they don't yet have a batch that is graduated. So you will have to check on a case-to-case basis, depending upon when you start working with the student, when the student goes to college, when the student will be graduating, and then calculating by checking with that university directly if their degree would if they would have had a batch that would have graduated, so that the equivalency with NMC comes forth later, if not today. Right. And hence I've put down the universities also according to categories. We have Monash and Manipal under Dream. We have Masa University under Ambitious or Target. And we have AUA Malaysia under the safety bracket. UAE, again, popular, not from the point of view of readiness with equivalency with NMC, but at some point we should be able to get the equivalency. The entrance exam here is different. There is something called as the ESAT exam, which is like how the SAT subject test earlier used to be in India. So there are ESATs in different subjects. So you need to write an ESAT for math, an ESAT for chemistry, an ESAT for bio, and an ESAT for physics. So a lot of preparation required. Hence, you don't still find a lot of Indian students applying to UAE medicine programs, even if they don't want to come back and practice in India and they're okay settling down, because we're talking a lot about how Middle East is similar to India. You can get all the help. Its proximity to the country is favorable. It's culturally quite similar to India. It's a land of luxury. People can make a good living in the UAE, but still not many people are going there to study medicine. That's because of so many exams that students have to write. I've written pathways with pre-med and medicine. I'm going to limit this to about 45 seconds to 1 minute as the time that I spend on this slide, because Chirag already covered it in his slide. But in the US and Canada, we know that the only way possible is to do first a pre-med and then do medicine. And I've put Australia also because I mentioned that Australia has both the routes that currently exist. And longer duration, of course, which Chirag mentioned. Last thing that I want to mention, which has not been discussed yet, which is important, and I would again go back to what Ms. Asma had shared in the beginning of her presentation, is why should I become a doctor and what are the skills that I have in order to become a doctor, which transcends beyond my academic and intellectual knowledge. It's about my compassion, my empathy, my ability to work long hours, my ability to work in teams, my ability to collaborate with people, ability to cope with pressure, ability to be able to see blood, ability to be able to work at the intersection of multiple stakeholders. And I would take the liberty of saying dirty stakeholders, where we're dealing with crime, we're dealing with the cops, we're dealing with so many other things. And hence the UK medicine schools, all of them have something called as the MMI, which is the mandatory interview that you have to do. Even if you have the perfect grades, you have a great UCAT score, you can still not become a doctor if you don't do well on the interview. So the interview checks your intellectual curiosity, but it also checks your other attributes and life skills. So empathy, compassion, and all the other life skills are checked. And it's again, I'm sure all of you have heard that if you're applying to the UK, you don't need to build a portfolio across what you've done on volunteering and sports and things like that. You should keep your personal statements very, very focused to what have you done related to the course that you want to do. Medicine is the only exception where you have to talk a lot beyond medicine also in your personal statement, because that's one area through which they're able to gauge your empathy. Like even if you've gone to an NGO and taught underprivileged kids English language skills, that is also something that can be incorporated in the medical personal statement, because the ability to help people and create impact in society is also one of the main skills that a doctor needs to have. It's a part of a doctor's integral KRA, so as to say, and hence the MMI further reinforces that back to the student if they're willing to help people or not. And with this, I end my bit on international medical education, colleges, and what's required. Over to Varnika to take the discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Punya. And thank you to all the speakers. I'm sure we all will agree that today's presentations have been truly, truly enriching. This is such a vast topic, and all the speakers, everybody has tried to condense as much information as possible in this very short duration. Reliable information on medical admissions, both in India and abroad, is often hard to come by. I'm sure you all will agree. However, I can confidently say that our session today has provided a wealth of valuable insights in a very clear and concise manner. This knowledge will be extremely useful to anybody who is guiding a student or assisting them as they navigate this life-changing journey. So I would request the audience to please type in your questions while we are now getting into a quick panel discussion. I know we are really running behind time. So maybe we can, is that okay with the other speakers, that if we take 10 more minutes and sort of, take question answers and finish the panel discussion? Is it okay with all the speakers?
Sure.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. So let's start with, as Punya, you rightly pointed out about these interviews and looking at the personal qualities that are very much required, right? Which are looked at, in all the medical entrance exams. Uh, in fact, interestingly, now BMAT has been discontinued and it's only going to be UCAT from this year onwards. And UCAT brings in the kind of things which are tested in UCAT are the kind of skills which are required by doctors, right? Which is verbal reasoning, decision making, situational judgment, and then followed by these mini interviews, right? So can one of you please help the audience understand how can Indian students prepare for UCAT and other exams which are there for medical entrances if they are looking for applying abroad? Are there any good places that they can look at for preparation, or how can they prepare on their own?
Okay. Can I take this?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think whoever wants to study medicine is already prepared by grade 10 or 11 that they want to study medicine. It's never a last minute decision. It's never an impulsive decision that they have to study medicine. So I generally urge all my students, in case they approach me and they start working with me earlier on in their career journey, to start with the prep early on. Miss Asma had mentioned how it's fairly similar to this course that they're doing in school, especially if they're doing the national curriculum. If they're not, then they can start referring to at least CBSE books. I have encouraged a lot of my students to now even use AI in today's world. If they're studying an alternate curriculum, they mention that they're doing AI, and AI has been very helpful in generating bite-sized information, especially for some of my students, for keeping NEET into account. What are the different topics that are there in CBSE which are not covered in the IB, which they would like them to know in NEET, and they start using AI at least to pull out all of that information if they're doing the preparation on themselves, and then they focus on just preparing for the targeted portion using CBSE and NEET self-help books. And then of course there are some students who would thrive if they land up getting external tutorial help. And then I have a few mentors, including some from TOC. We have one mentor here, a person called Ms. Bhaktawar, who runs a preparatory a tutorial service for UCAT. Some of my students have prepped with her and have got very good ranks. I also have some tutors from the UK that I recommend to my students also. So we share a resource library with students, saying that we have no vested interest in recommending one over the other. Students do their own due diligence and go ahead with one of them.
Fantastic. Chirag, maybe you could answer this question that, looking at so many options that are available, both in India and abroad, and now that we've gone through all different countries and, options, how does one check, where to really, apply, which is the best path, so that your options are open, even to when you want to come back and practice in India? So if you can
So,
just give a very
sure.
quick, concise thing, because there is just so much available.
So one thing is very clear, all of these English-speaking countries, obviously as Indian curriculum, is exactly what, replicates, I mean, UK, Australia, New Zealand, all of these countries. So there is no issue because minimum 54 months, hospital recognition, all of these things is taken care of. It is just the smaller countries where, I mean, there are actual emails written to NMC where today they say, okay, we will do it. And after 6 months they say we might not recognize it. So you have to be very careful. NMC is also having a lot of flip-flops on those terms. So English speaking countries, there is no issue. Another thing, obviously, as I said, you have to keep post graduation in mind. So let's say even in India, let's say people choose a med school, let's say 1.5 CR in an private med school. I always say add another 25 lakh rupee budget and prepare the USMLE pathway, where I usually mentor the students. And in the US residency program, these are all funded by the US government. So from first year itself, they are getting about 30, 40 lakh stipend. So annually, end of 3 years, they are actually making their undergrad degree free, So you also need to see the recognition of that degree in United States. Like, for example, a lot of students who choose to Russia, or there was a small place in Ukraine called as Crimea. Now that was disputed land. So unfortunately, students could not write the USMLE exams, and obviously they could not clear the Indian exam. So they were stuck midway. Neither they could choose India or United States. So we have to also see the long-term requirement. And as Punya rightly mentioned, the ability, whether one wants to become a physician or not, that is very important. I make it very simple that students, it is like you'll be on a treadmill. So once you join, for the next 10 years you have to focus here. You cannot have a midway option or a career option. So this is the first thing I tell the parents and students: are you committing the next 10 years? Because the career curve in terms of I would say even financial independence, like those who choose medicine in India, undergrad or postgrad, average age to become financially independent is 32 years. And those who do, let's say, undergrad in India, let's say postgrad in United States, they can reduce it to 27 years. Even those criteria need to be considered, basically.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
Sasma, if you could just clarify, because there were a lot of questions there in the chat while you were talking about so as we know that IBDP, you cannot take 3 sciences, right? And to be able to appear for NEET, you need physics, chemistry, and biology. So how do these students stand, and what is the option for them? Do they need to get out of IB and join another curriculum, or they can continue? What is the best pathway?
For IB, they have to take permission. They are given permission case to case basis to study the 3 sciences, because they will have to tell IB that they want to go in for medical education. So, and changes are coming in IB also. So it may happen that within a year or two, they may be allowed to take all the 3 sciences. So at the moment, they have to take permission from IB by writing.
Would that mean these IB students would end up taking 7 subjects,
Yes.
and all 3 of them would basically
Good sciences.
4
Usually
HL
they are not
subjects.
allowed to take 3 sciences, but they have
Correct.
to and they have to be determined. Resilience and determination is very, very important in this. And it all depends on what the child is thinking, where the child is. That is why I always tell my students that, internships eliminate careers. So once you go and do an internship after class 11 in a medical with a doctor, in a hospital, and then see whether you are really interested and you're ready to study for minimum 12 years. It could be more than that, because it's a continuous learning process. So the children have to be determined and show their passion for this field.
Absolutely. I think very well said that internships really eliminate, at least help in shortlisting, eliminating
Careers, yeah.
careers, and hopefully it's a easier choice then. So looking at, if somebody finishes MBBS in India and is looking for post-graduation, medical post-grad abroad, would any of you would want to, maybe suggest the audience on what kind of scholarships are available?
I just mentioned that in US, there is no tuition fee. So post-graduation globally, even if we talk about UK, it's like a job. So all my students after doing MBBS who apply for United States, they go on a work visa. So either it's the J1 or an H1B visa without any quota restrictions as such. So they don't go on a student visa at all, and it is across private or government med schools. So, and the best part is it is very transparent. For other countries, maybe that information is not readily available, but any US university you pick up, you can see the salary structures. You can actually see the actual placements of students. You put internal medicine, surgery, psychiatry, and you'll see students and from which med schools they have graduated. The information is readily available.
Fantastic. And there's some very interesting insight in the chat from Ms. Ritu. who is talking about the UCAT ANZ score versus the UCAT UK scores. Punya, would you want to elaborate more on that? Because it's a very
In fact, I
interesting
was just
perspective.
going to comment on Ritu's message that it's one of the most insightful messages that all of us
Yes.
missed out on saying. Very, very valid point. So the UCAT exam, just like the IELTS exam, we had an IELTS conducted by the IDP and IELTS conducted by the British Council, when both these two organizations used to co-own IELTS at one point of time. Similarly, the UCAT exam is also, there's a UCAT conducted and administered by the UK, and there's a UCAT which is conducted and administered by the ANZ. And in one calendar year, you can only take one of those. If you land up taking both, then only one of them is valid, the one that you take first, exactly what Ritu has mentioned. So if students want to go to Australia, and they want to keep the UK open, both the countries, they should look at taking the UCAT UK first, and then they should look at taking the UCAT ANZ later. So as a gap year student, you will end up applying. The good part is that Australia has multiple intakes a year, unlike the UK, where there is only one main intake fall. So when students are equally interested in both these geographies, I ask them to look at UK as the first priority and try and take it through the UCAT UK. And then if that doesn't work out, they can in the next calendar year take the UCAT ANZ and land up joining the earlier intake in Australia. This is the strategy that I use.
Perfect. I think we've covered most of the kind of points, remarks in the chat, and I think we are also way.
Just one last point question there was from Ramya, which I said that I'll just answer about lack of transparency as to what UCAT score is competitive for which university. I think it would vary for all counselors here based on the experience that they have. So I can share what I have seen with my students, and then Chirag and Miss Asma, as well as Varnika, and anybody else here, feel free to chime in and share your perspectives. Because when you Google, you actually, all websites are giving you different data, which is why Ramya has mentioned that there is genuine lack of transparency. I've seen my kids get into Imperial and King's UCL generally, Imperial generally at a score of 3,000 plus, 3,050 plus. That's what I have seen. Some cases, I've also had a student at 2,950 get into Imperial, but the student had all 3 A stars in the A levels curriculum. So at the end of the day, the applications assessment is being done holistically. It's not just being done on the basis of UCAT score. And here, UK is functioning like how the US functions, where there is never going to be a cutoff score for the SAT. Otherwise UK is very clear that this is our minimum requirements. Everything is very transparently written on their website, except when it comes to medicine. So for colleges like Imperial, I would say a 3,000 score is a competitive score. For UCL and King's, anywhere around 2,950 to 2,900. And then for colleges like Nottingham, Exeter, Bristol, somewhere around 2,800. And then the safety colleges like Brunel, etc., even a 2,600 or a 2,550 would work. This is what I have to say. Feel free for anybody to, add any point or differ in case you guys do.
No, I kind of agree broadly on what you've quoted, Punya. And I think is there anything else anybody wants to add? Otherwise, we'll close the session here. Yeah.
Sorry, I joined just when Chirag was going through the presentation, so I missed a bit of answers. I'm not sure if this was covered by any of the speakers earlier. A lot of students are heading to the Manipal University program in Malaysia. What would be the panelists' advice on its validity when they come back to India? Is it a comprehensive medical program? Because for internships, they can't do it in Malaysia. They have to go to UK apparently. So what would be the panelists' thoughts on this particular program? I'd like to know, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Chirag, do you want to answer this?
As I mentioned, sure. So at this point of time, all the students who had to change the med schools in Ukraine, during the Ukraine war, they got a special permission that, okay, you are changing the med school. Even in India, if somebody changes the med school, let's say gets into DY, there is no provision or acceptance that if you change the med school, unless it is in exception written on this thing. And so which is where, since internship is part of the curriculum, it has to be done in a hospital within the campus, or I mean within the city. That is the understanding as of now. And as I said, in past we've written to NMC. So as on date, they say no, but then we don't know. I mean, it can always be a flip-flop depending on, ultimately NMC is worried about the quality. So as long as the university can prove the quality of education, I'm sure there will be some way around. But at this point of time, this is the condition that everything has to be there within the same campus.
I'll just add one point to what Chirag said for here. So as of now, it's not accepted, but because it's an Indian origin college, most of my students and parents have still gone ahead and sought admission because they feel that since the window is long, it's 5 years from now, they are very confident that in the interim period, there will come a rule which will say that Manipal's degrees accepted and accredited by the NMC. And the worst case scenario, if it does not, they still know that they will be able to practice in the country where they eventually go for their postgrad and not practice in India at all. But they still trust the brand Manipal overall, and hence they are going ahead and taking admission there.
Absolutely, Punya, bang on. I think it's the brand Manipal that really stands solid in this situation. So I think time is going to really tell this thing as to how it kind of pans out. So as we come close to this today's session, I want to thank each of our speakers for sharing their valuable insights and experience with us. I'd also like to extend a heartfelt thanks for our attendees for your active participation and making the session so engaging.
Sorry,
Yes,
I'm really sorry to just another question. For example, UK universities like Newcastle also have a campus in Malaysia. And maybe there are other UK medical schools which have campuses in other countries in Asia. What would be the panelists' thoughts on applying to such medical programs as well, please?
So students are applying to these campuses also. I put it in my presentation also. They're not as popular, but there are students. So there are fewer Indians studying there and more non-Indians studying in those particular campuses as of now. But nothing stops Indians from studying there because the other campuses which are non-UK run and local Malaysian run are way significantly cheaper also in their cost. So, and generally students will end up choosing Malaysia over other countries in medicine are choosing it because of the cost factor as well.
Thank you.
For those of you who might have more questions or wish to explore these topics further, please feel free to reach out. We are all there on the TOC group. So feel free to reach out through the TOC community. We encourage continuous dialogues. And thank you so much once again. At TOC, our goal is to foster collaboration, growth, learning, and today's session truly embodied that spirit. So wish you a very restful evening. Thank you everyone for joining in. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you, Varnika. Thank you.
Thank you, Varnika.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you.